Maybe it's best you head home now. We're all pretty tired. My son David's words shot across the dinner table like a poisoned arrow. The half-eaten turkey, the wine glasses half full, and my grandson Ethan's wide eyes, bewildered why Grandma was being sent away on Christmas night. I tasted the bitter humiliation rising in my throat as I carefully folded the embroidered napkin, the very ones I'd made for their wedding linens. My 67-year-old hands, gnarled and marked by time, trembled slightly. "All right," I managed to say, standing up with all the dignity I had left. "I'll call a cab." Jessica kept her eyes fixed on her plate, picking at the remains of the feast with her fork, as if it were the most fascinating thing in the world. Not a glance, not a word. Just the complicit silence of someone who finally got what she wanted. "I'll take you," David said, already on his feet, car keys jingling in his hand. There was a trace of regret in his voice, but not enough to back down. Ethan ran and clutched my skirt. "Grandma, are you coming back tomorrow so we can open presents together?" Before I could answer, Jessica stood up. "Ethan, Grandma's tired. We'll open presents just the three of us tomorrow, as a family." That "just the three of us" landed like a tombstone on my heart. You must be wondering how we got to this point. How my only son, the boy I raised alone through the sweat of my brow, could kick me out of Christmas dinner like I was an inconvenient intruder. Everything started to change about 6 months ago, when David got promoted at the construction company where he works. From site engineer to project manager. Quite a leap for someone who started as an intern. I remember the day he called me with the news, his voice overflowing with pride. "Mom, I did it! I'm gonna make almost double and we'll have better health insurance for Ethan." My heart swelled with that joy only a mother knows. That mix of pride and relief at seeing all the sacrifices pay off. My boy had made it. With the promotion came the move to a bigger house in a gated community on the south side of town. Far from the 2-bedroom apartment where we used to live. Far from my small rented apartment downtown. "You'll love it, Mom. There's even a guest room that can be yours whenever you want to stay with us." That day, I helped them move. I carried small objects, organized the kitchen, while Jessica coordinated the new furniture arriving. That's when I noticed the first sign. "Susan, I think it's better if I organize this. I have a specific system for my kitchen." My kitchen, not our kitchen, not the family kitchen. Hers. I recoiled with a strained smile. "Of course, dear. Just trying to help." In the following weeks, my visits became more spaced out. Before, I used to go every Sunday for lunch with them. Then it became every other week, because social commitments increased with David's new position. When I called, Jessica would answer with that polite but distant voice. "Oh, Susan, David's in a meeting. Yes, I'll tell him you called." "Ethan? He's at swim practice right now." David started returning my calls later and later, each one briefer. "Sorry, Mom. I'm exhausted. Can we talk another day?" In October, I turned 67. I waited all day for a call, an invitation to lunch, anything. Nothing. That night, I received a text. "Happy birthday, Mom. Sorry I didn't call, busy day. Promised to make it up to you this weekend." The weekend came and went. Nothing. When we finally met, 2 weeks later, David brought an expensive perfume as a belated gift. Ethan jumped into my lap, covering my face with kisses. "Grandma, I made you a drawing, but I left it at home." Jessica smiled, that smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Well, Susan, we've been so busy. David barely has time for us, let alone visitors." Visitors. That's what I'd become. A visitor in my own son's life. Even so, when December arrived, I clung to hope. Christmas had always been our special day. Ever since David's father left us when he was just 8 years old, we made Christmas our fortress. Even in the toughest years when I worked as a seamstress by day and a cleaner by night, I always saved a little money for a special gift and for our dinner. I remember the Christmas I managed to buy that red bike he wanted so badly. I saved for 6 months, penny by penny. The look on his face when he saw the gift. Oh, that expression was worth every callus on my hands. That's why, when David called me inviting me to Christmas dinner, my heart filled with joy. Of course I'll come, my son. Can I bring my special cornbread dressing? I know you love it. There was a slight pause. Well, Mom, Jessica's already planning the menu, but you can bring a dessert if you want. On the 24th, I woke up early. Even so, I prepared my special dressing with pecans, cranberries, and that touch of butter that made everything more flavorful. I also made my mother's classic pecan pie. I wrapped the presents carefully. A remote control car for Ethan, a dress shirt for David, and a silk scarf for Jessica. I arrived at their house at 4 in the afternoon, as planned. I wanted to help with the preparations. Jessica opened the door, her cell phone wedged between her shoulder and ear, and gestured for me to come in. The house was impeccable, decorated like those architecture magazines. None of the simple ornaments David and I used to make together when he was little. You can leave the things in the kitchen, Susan, she said, finally hanging up the phone. I'm just finishing organizing everything. I placed the serving dishes on the kitchen counter. The aroma of turkey roasting in the oven mixed with other smells I didn't recognize. I brought my special dressing, I said, proudly uncovering the dish. And a pie for dessert. Jessica looked at the dressing and frowned slightly. Oh, how thoughtful. But I've already prepared the stuffing, Susan. And you know, nobody really eats that kind of stuff anymore. Nobody anymore. As if our family traditions were antiquated, disposable things. And we already have dessert, too. A tart I ordered from the French bakery. I swallowed hard and placed my dishes in a corner of the kitchen. I tried to help with the other preparations, but every suggestion of mine was met with an impatient sigh. Where's David? I asked, trying to sound casual. He had to deal with a last-minute work issue. He should be here in time for dinner. Ethan appeared running and threw himself into my arms. Grandma! Grandma! Come see my new room! That sincere hug was like a balm. I followed my grandson to his room, decorated with a superhero theme. He showed me every toy, every detail, with that pure excitement only children have. Grandma, tell me that story about the Christmas Dad got the red bike. I started to tell it, but soon Jessica appeared at the door. Ethan, let Grandma rest. Go wash your hands for dinner. But I want to stay with Grandma. Ethan, now. Her tone allowed no argument. When David finally arrived, it was past 8. He hurried in, his tie loosened around his neck, jacket slung over his arm. Sorry I'm late. Emergency meeting. He kissed Jessica quickly on the lips, hugged Ethan, and only then came to me. A quick kiss on the cheek, without really meeting my eyes. Everything all right, Mom? Glad you could make it, as if I were just another guest, not the woman who held his hand through every step of his life. During dinner, I tried to make conversation, talk about old times, about how good it was to be together for Christmas. I commented on how beautiful the decorations were, But that next year we could also use those old ornaments I'd saved from when David was little. Mom, please, David interrupted. Don't start with those old stories. Nobody wants to hear about that. I felt as if I'd been slapped. I looked at my son, searching in that adult face for the boy who held my hand crossing the street. But he seemed like a stranger, someone I didn't recognize anymore. The atmosphere grew tense. I tried to fix it by talking about other things, but every word I spoke seemed to irritate my son more. When I mentioned that the seasoning on the roast was different from how we used to make it as a family, David slammed his fork down. Enough. You only know how to criticize. Nothing we do is good enough. Son, I didn't mean... Maybe it's best you head home now. We're all pretty tired. And so we returned to the beginning of this story. Me, being kicked out of Christmas dinner by my own son. In the car, the silence weighed heavily between us. I tried one last time. Remember that Christmas with the red bike, son? You were so happy you slept next to it. He kept driving, his eyes fixed on the road, his knuckles white from gripping the steering wheel so tightly. Mom, please. This isn't the time for that. When will it be the time then? You barely talk to me lately. I barely see my grandson. What happened to us, David? He sighed deeply. You don't understand. My life has changed. I have responsibilities, a position to maintain. Jessica's right when she says we need to adapt to our new social circle. And I'm not part of that circle? Am I an embarrassment to you now? He didn't answer. He didn't need to. His silence said it all. When we arrived at my simple building downtown, David barely turned off the engine. Sorry about what happened, he mumbled without looking me in the eyes. I'll call you later. I got out of the car, my heart heavy. I stood on the sidewalk watching the car pull away, carrying the boy who'd once sworn I'd always be the most important woman in his life. I walked into my empty apartment. The lights on the small tree I'd put up by myself blinked sadly in the corner of the living room. The presents I'd bought for them, forgotten in the trunk of Jason's car in his rush to drop me off. I sank into the old armchair, the same one where I'd so often rocked Jason to sleep when he had nightmares. I looked at my hands that had sewn uniforms, cleaned other people's houses, soothed fevers in the night. Hands that now felt useless, disposable. The tears came without warning. I cried until there were no more tears, until the sky began to lighten, announcing Christmas Day. A Christmas I'd spend alone for the first time in almost 40 years. The phone stayed silent that day, and the next too. It wasn't until 3 days later that I got a text from Jason. Mom, everything okay? Just checking in. I stared at those cold words on my phone screen. So unlike the son I knew. So empty of any real remorse. I didn't answer right away. For the first time, I felt like I needed to value myself. That I couldn't accept crumbs of attention, leftovers of affection anymore. The next week, my friend Sharon invited me to a women's group our age that met on Wednesdays. Come on, Brenda. It'll do you good to get out for a bit. Reluctantly, I agreed. To my surprise, I found women there with stories much like mine. Mothers who'd raised their kids alone and now felt forgotten. Grandmothers who barely saw their grandkids. Women reinventing their lives after 60. I started going to the group regularly. I started smiling again, making plans. Sharon convinced me to pick up my old sewing hobby again. Not out of necessity this time, but for pleasure. I started making small handmade crafts that were soon selling at a local market. When I finally replied to Jason's text, a week later, it wasn't with bitterness or resentment. It was with the clarity of someone who finally understands her own worth. I'm fine, son. I hope you are too. When you're ready to really talk, I'll be here. But things will be different now. The love's still the same, but the respect needs to come back. He didn't reply. Maybe he didn't know what to say to this new Brenda, who wasn't bending anymore, who wouldn't be treated like an inconvenience. January arrived, bringing its usual chill and the promise of a fresh start. I still woke up some mornings with that dull ache in my chest, that longing for what we used to be. But something had shifted inside me. That Brenda, who accepted crumbs of attention, was gone that Christmas. In her place, a woman was emerging who finally understood she deserved more, that she had worth, that she had a story. And that maybe was my real Christmas present. But the story doesn't end there. What happened after that text would change our relationship forever. And I still didn't know if we were heading for a reconciliation or a permanent estrangement. 2 weeks passed with no reply from Jason. Each day of silence was like a small wound opening in my heart. But unlike before, I wasn't glued to my phone anymore, waiting. Life went on. My Wednesday women's group had become a safe harbor. My handmade sewing pieces were starting to get popular at the neighborhood craft fair. It was at one of those fairs, on a sunny Saturday in February, that I heard a familiar voice calling my name. "Grandma! Grandma!" I turned, and there was Leo, running between the stalls, his little face lit up with a smile. Behind him, Jason walked hesitantly, hands in his pockets, his gaze uncertain. I hugged my grandson tight, feeling his warm little body against mine, breathing in that kid smell I'd missed so much. "Look what I made at school, Grandma." He showed me a colorful drawing where 3 stick figures, one big, one medium, and one small, were holding hands. "It's me, Daddy, and you." I swallowed the lump in my throat. "It's beautiful, my love. I'll keep it safe." Jason approached, looking out of place, as if he didn't quite know what to do with himself. "Hi, Mom," he said, his voice low. "Leo saw the flyer for the fair and recognized your picture. He insisted on coming." "It's good you came," I replied, maintaining the dignity I'd promised myself. "Want to see what I've been making?" I showed them my pieces: patchwork bags, embroidered aprons, small decorative pillows. Leo was fascinated by a fabric dinosaur I'd made. "Can I have it, Grandma? Please?" "Of course, sweetie. It's a gift from Grandma." Jason watched everything in silence, his eyes scanning the stall, the people stopping to admire my work, the women from my group who greeted me with familiarity. "I didn't know you were doing all this," he finally said. "There's a lot about me you don't know anymore, son." Our eyes met, and for a moment I saw a flicker of recognition in his eyes, as if he was seeing, for the first time in a long time, the woman I truly was, beyond the maternal figure he'd reduced me to in his mind. You look good," he commented, surprised. "I am," I replied simply. Leo tugged on his dad's shirt. "Daddy, can we take Grandma to lunch, please?" Jason hesitated for a moment. "Would you like to, Mom? There's a restaurant nearby." "What about Stephanie?" I asked, not to provoke, but because I needed clarity. "She's at a homeowners association decorating committee meeting," he replied, a slight discomfort in his voice. I thought for a moment. The old Brenda would have accepted immediately, grateful for any crumb of attention. But the new Brenda... "I can't today, son. I need to stay at the fair until closing. But we can set up another day. A day when we can really talk." The surprise on his face was clear. He hadn't expected a refusal. "Oh, right. We can definitely do that." "But Grandma, I want to stay with you," Leo protested, clinging to my skirt. I knelt down to his level. "And we will be together, sweetie. I promise. But today, Grandma has an important commitment. How about you come visit me next weekend? We can bake cookies together like we used to." His little eyes lit up. "Promise?" "I promise." Jason looked lost, as if the script he'd planned for this encounter had been completely rewritten. "So, I'll call to set something up?" he asked, uncertain. "Yes, son. Call. And this time, let's really talk." After they left, Sharon approached my stall, a knowing smile on her lips. "Was that your son?" I nodded, still looking at the spot where Jason and Leo had disappeared into the crowd. "You did good, Brenda. You showed him you have worth, that you have your own life." "It wasn't easy to say no," I confessed. A part of me wanted to drop everything and go with them. "Of course you did. You're a mom, but you're also a whole woman with your own story, and he needs to learn to respect that." That night, at home, I kept looking at the drawing Leo had given me. The 3 stick figures holding hands. A family. My family, despite everything. 3 days later, the phone rang. It was Jason. "Mom, I'm calling to set up that lunch." His voice sounded different. Less sure, maybe, or just more sincere. "Of course, son. When do you suggest?" "Sunday. I can pick you up. You. At noon." "Sunday's great. And Stephanie and Leo, are they coming too?" There was a pause on the other end of the line. "Leo, yes. Stephanie. Well, I thought we could talk better. Just the 3 of us." Something had changed. I could feel it. "All right, son. I'll be waiting." On Sunday, promptly at noon, the doorbell rang. I opened the door and there they were. Jason, with a bouquet of flowers in his hand, and Leo, holding a package wrapped in colorful paper. "For you, Grandma." Leo handed over the package, bouncing with excitement. "I picked it out." Inside was a picture frame with an old photo. Jason and me at the beach. Him around 10 years old, both smiling for the camera. The ocean in the background. I didn't even remember that photo. "Found it in the old albums," Jason explained, a slight flush on his cheeks. "Leo wanted to give it to you." I hugged my grandson, fighting back tears. "It's the most beautiful gift I've ever received, my love." At the diner, a simple but cozy spot, Leo talked non-stop, telling us about school, his friends, his favorite cartoons. Jason and I listened, exchanging occasional glances over the boy's head. After lunch, Jason suggested Leo go play at the small playground next to the diner, visible from our table. Finally, we were alone. "Mom," he began, his eyes fixed on the coffee cup in front of him. I don't really know where to start." "The beginning is usually a good place," I replied, trying to ease the tension with a slight smile. He took a deep breath. "That Christmas, what happened? I'm not proud of it. I'm not proud of how I've been treating you." I stayed silent, giving him space to continue. "After you sent that text, I did a lot of thinking. About everything you've done for me. About how I'd be nothing without you." His voice faltered a bit, and he cleared his throat before continuing. "Remember when Dad left? I was 8. That night, I heard you crying in the bathroom. But in the morning you showed up with a smile, made my coffee, drove me to school like nothing had happened. I remembered it perfectly. The sting of betrayal, the fear of the future, the overwhelming responsibility of raising a child alone. and the conscious decision not to let Jason carry that burden. "You never complained," he continued. "You never made me feel like I was a burden, even when I know it must have been so hard." "You were never a burden, Jason," I interrupted softly. "You were my strength. Every sacrifice was worth it because it was for you." He finally looked up and I saw his eyes were glistening. "And how did I repay you? By treating you like an inconvenience," I finished for him. "Like someone who didn't fit into your new life anymore." He nodded, ashamed. "What happened to us, son? When did you start being embarrassed of me?" The question hung between us, heavy, unavoidable. "It's not embarrassment," he weakly protested. "It's just, when I got that promotion, when we started moving in different circles, Stephanie always said we needed to adapt, that certain things from the past should stay in the past. And I'm one of those things? Part of a past you want to forget?" "No," he exclaimed, louder than he intended, attracting glances from nearby tables. He lowered his voice. "No, Mom. Never. It's just, I let myself get carried away. By ambition, by status, by this idea that I needed to be someone different to deserve success." I looked at my son, this grown man who seemed as lost as the little boy who once cried because his father wasn't coming home anymore. "Jason, I never wanted you to be stuck in the past. I always wanted you to fly high, to achieve your dreams. But flying high doesn't mean cutting your roots." He nodded slowly. "I know that now, or I'm relearning it." "And Stephanie, where does she fit into all of this?" He sighed deeply. "Things aren't good between us. They weren't good even before that Christmas." That surprised me. They always seemed like the perfect couple, at least on social media and at our rare family gatherings. "She has expectations," he continued, "about how we should live, who we should be. At first I thought it was ambition, that she just wanted the best for our family. But now you're not so sure? Now I wonder if it will ever be enough, if we'll ever get there, wherever there is." I looked out the window, at Leo playing happily on the slide. So innocent, so oblivious to adult complications. "Son, I'm not here to judge your marriage or your choices. I just want you to be happy. Truly happy, not just successful." "I know, Mom, and that's why I needed to see you, to apologize. Because amidst all this confusion, the only thing I'm sure of is that I don't want to lose you." I reached across the table and held his hand. His hands were bigger than mine now, stronger. But in that moment, I felt as if I were holding my little boy's hand again. "You won't lose me, Jason. But things need to change. I can't keep being treated like an inconvenience, like someone who doesn't deserve respect. I understand, and I promise it will be different. Don't promise. Show me." He nodded, squeezing my hand. "I will show you. Starting today." Just then, Leo came running back to our table, his face flushed from playing. "Daddy, can I sleep over at Grandma's house tonight? Please, please." Jason looked at me, a silent question in his eyes. "If your grandma wants you, it's fine by me," he replied. "I'd love that," I responded, feeling a joy I hadn't experienced in a long time. "We can make those chocolate chip cookies you like." "Yay!" Leo cheered, jumping with delight. Later, when Jason dropped us off at my apartment, he hesitated at the door. "Mom, about what we talked about. I really want to fix things." "I know, son. One step at a time." He hugged me, a real lingering hug, like we hadn't shared in ages. I felt his heart beating against mine, and for a moment it was as if time had turned back, as if he were that little boy again, running into my arms after school. "I love you, Mom," he whispered in my ear. "I love you too, son. Always." After he left, Leo and I spent the afternoon baking cookies, telling stories, laughing together. When it was time for bed, he snuggled beside me, his soft breathing gradually settling into the regular rhythm of sleep. I stayed awake for a while, watching his serene little face, so much like Jason's at the same age. I thought about our conversation, the promises made, the path we still had ahead. It wouldn't be easy. There were open wounds, habits to change, a daughter-in-law who might never fully accept me. But today, for the first time in a long time, I felt hope. Not the naive hope of someone who expects everything to magically resolve itself, but the mature hope of someone who knows that love, when true, finds its way, even if that path is winding and full of obstacles. In the following weeks, Jason started calling me regularly. Not just quick, perfunctory calls, but real conversations, where we talked about our days, our feelings, our shared memories. Leo started sleeping over at my house one weekend a month. Our special Grandma Leo time, as he called it. On those days, we did all those simple things that create lasting memories. Baking cookies, telling stories, putting together puzzles, going to the park. Stephanie remained distant, but at least now it was politely distant, not overtly hostile. Jason told me, in one of our conversations, that they were going to couples therapy. We're trying, Mom. For us. For Leo. In April, 3 months after our reconciling lunch, I received an unexpected invitation. Jason wanted me to join them for Sunday dinner at Stephanie's parents' house. "Are you sure, son? I don't want to cause any discomfort." "I'm sure, Mom. It's important to me that you're there, that we're a complete family." The dinner was interesting. Stephanie's parents, the Millers, were polite but formal people. I better understood where her obsession with status and appearances came from. Her mother, Mrs. Miller, seemed to constantly evaluate everything and everyone around her. The decor, the clothes, the table manners. At one point, when we were in the living room after dinner, Mrs. Miller commented on my blouse, a simple piece, but one I had sewn and hand-embroidered myself. "That's different, Deborah. Handmade, isn't it? So artisanal." There was a slight tone of condescension in her voice, as if artisanal were synonymous with inferior. Before I could respond, Jason intervened. "My mom is an artist, Mrs. Miller. Her pieces are doing really well at the local artisan markets. In fact, I'm thinking of buying some to give as gifts to our clients at the real estate development firm. Something unique, made with care, instead of those generic gift baskets everyone else gives." Stephanie's surprised look was impayable, and to my own surprise, she added, "It's true, Mom. Deborah's pieces are really beautiful. I have a handbag she made. It's very elegant. I didn't even know Stephanie had one of my bags. Probably a gift from Jason she had never mentioned before." That moment, as simple as it was, meant a lot. My son was defending me, valuing me publicly. And just maybe, Stephanie was starting to see me in a different light. On the way back home, in the back seat of the car, with Leo asleep beside me, I reflected on how life comes full circle. 6 months ago, I was being ushered out of Christmas dinner, feeling discarded and worthless. Now I was slowly reclaiming my place in my son's life, building a more mature relationship, based not just on unconditional motherly love, but on mutual respect between adults. It wasn't perfect. There were still moments of tension, still wounds that hurt when touched. Stephanie and I would probably never be best friends, but we were finding a balance, a way to coexist that didn't require me to diminish myself, or for her to feign an affection she didn't feel. And more importantly, I had found myself in the process. I wasn't just Jason's mother, Leo's grandmother anymore. I was Deborah, woman, artisan, friend, active member of a community. Someone with her own worth, independent of the family roles I played. When December arrived again, bringing with it the lights and memories of Christmas, I received another invitation from Jason. "Mom, we want you to spend Christmas with us this year. And if it's not too much to ask, we'd love for you to bring your wild rice stuffing with dried cranberries. Leo has never tried it and I miss it." I smiled into the phone, feeling a sweet emotion wash over me. "Of course I'll bring it, son. It would be my pleasure." On Christmas Eve, I walked into their house with a light heart, so different from the year before. The decor was still elegant, but I noticed with surprise that among the modern ornaments were some of our old handmade ones, the ones Jason and I used to make together when he was little. Stephanie greeted me with a smile that, if not warm, at least seemed genuine. "Welcome, Deborah. Leo hasn't stopped talking about your Christmas cookies." Dinner was peaceful, filled with small conversations and laughter. My wild rice stuffing with dried cranberries held a place of honor on the table, and Jason served himself twice, to my secret satisfaction. After dinner, when we were all in the living room, Leo handing out presents from under the tree, Jason sat down next to me on the sofa. "Merry Christmas, Mom," he said softly, just to me. "Merry Christmas, son. You know, I've been doing a lot of thinking about this past year, everything that's happened since then, and I realized something important." "What?" "That sometimes you have to lose something to truly understand its worth. I almost lost you, Mom, and it made me see just how essential you are in my life, in our lives." I felt the tears welling up, but this time they were tears of joy, not pain. "You'd never truly lose me, son, but I get what you mean. Sometimes you need a little distance to see things clearly." "Exactly. And you know what else I learned?" "What?" "That real success has nothing to do with status, money, or social standing. It's about the people we love, the values we carry, with the memories we build together." Just then, Leo came running over with a package in his hands. "Grandma, this one's for you. From all of us." I opened the package carefully. Inside was a photo album, beautifully bound. As I flipped through it, I saw it was full of old pictures. Jason and me through the years, from his childhood right up to adulthood. And on the last pages, recent photos. Me with Leo baking cookies, the three of us at the park, even a shot from the craft fair, where I'm smiling behind my booth. On the very last page, there was a message handwritten by Jason. "To my mom, who taught me the true meaning of unconditional love. Thank you for never giving up on me, even when I almost gave up on us. Love you always." I hugged the album against my chest, unable to hold back the tears. "Thank you," was all I could manage. Later, as the night wound down, and Leo had already been tucked into bed, dreaming of the presents he'd open in the morning, Jason walked me to the guest room, the same one he'd mentioned when they first moved in, saying it could be mine whenever I wanted to stay. "Good night, Mom. Sleep well." "Good night, son." He hesitated at the door as if he wanted to say something more. You know, Mom, I've been thinking. Maybe you could consider moving closer to us. Not to live with us. I know you value your independence now. But there are some nice apartments in the neighborhood, close enough that Leo could walk over to visit you when he's a little older. The suggestion caught me off guard. You'd really want that? I would. We would. Even Stephanie said it'd be good to have you close, especially for Leo. I'll think about it, son. Thanks for suggesting it. After he left, I sat on the edge of the bed, reflecting on everything that had happened over the past year. The pain of that Christmas, the journey of self-discovery, the gradual reconciliation, and now, this invitation that symbolized so much. I don't know what the future holds. Maybe I'll move closer to them. Maybe I'll stay in my downtown apartment, near my new friends and my booth at the fair. Maybe Jason and Stephanie's marriage will grow stronger, or maybe it'll face new challenges. Maybe I'll meet someone special in this new phase of life. Who knows? What I know for sure is that the Deborah who accepted crumbs of attention is gone forever. In her place, there's a woman who knows her worth, who understands that true love includes respect, who knows it's never too late to start over. And that, without a doubt, was the greatest gift that painful Christmas brought me. Because sometimes you have to get completely lost to finally find yourself. Sometimes the end of one story is just the beginning of another, much more beautiful and true.